Finding the right tight end can be super tough. And I'm not talking about the type of tight ends that you have to hide from your wife. But with the tight end position, I think sometimes we overlook the guys that are just getting tons of volume that have the potential to produce. Who were they last year? Let's take a look. Headliner Nation, I have got every tight end that received at least 50 targets last season. And we're going to go through and we are going to break down all of their volume stats and try to determine is there any type of trends that we need to keep an eye on for guys maybe in 2023. I think there are plenty of people that are going to be a little bit surprised that Tyler Higbee was number 4 among tight ends in targets last season. And you gotta wonder, in Los Angeles, with a lack of consistent pass catching weapons and Cooper Kupp coming off a significant injury, is Tyler Higbee gonna be in a position again this season to see that many targets? And one of my favorite tight end targets is Pat Freiermuth. Make sure that you keep this guy on your radar because the targets we see right now could be sustained this season, even though they have a ton of guys around him. David Njoku is 10th in receptions and 11th in targets. Would have been really interesting to see where this guy ended up had he not been hurt at one point last season, because he got off to a really good start with Jacoby Brissett. It kind of faded at the end of the year, and he was more of just a red zone target for Deshaun Watson. But he's such a great weapon. Cleveland needs to figure out how to utilize him more consistently. Only one tight end with 1,000 receiving yards, and that was Travis Kelce. I mean, it's no shock to anybody that he's number 1 in every single category we've seen, and shocker, will be the rest of the video. George Kittle was 10th in targets, 7th in receptions, but 5th in receiving yards. And I absolutely love seeing that because it just reminds you how George Kittle has that big playability. And even if he were to get a little less volume because of, let's say, Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel maybe bouncing back, and Christian McCaffrey, obviously, for a full season in San Francisco, that even if he gets less targets and receptions that we would like, the big playability is so prominent with him, he could return value easily. And on the flip side of that, Tyler Higbee, 4th in targets, 5th in receptions, 10th in receiving yards. The big playability with Tyler Higbee just isn't there as much. And sometimes, again, that can be contributed to the fact he doesn't have a lot of weapons around him, or has inconsistent weapons around him. And due to that fact, he just doesn't have the ability to kind of break some of those bigger plays that these other tight ends do. And again, the numbers for George Kittle continue to climb because now he's 2nd in touchdowns. He had 1 less touchdown than Travis Kelce last year. This dude is an absolute steal at his current ADP as of this recording. That could change, obviously. And because of that, he is definitely a guy that if you decide that you don't want to draft Travis Kelce in the first round or miss out on him or whatever it may be, George Kittle a few rounds later, where typically he's in like round 4 or 5, that is going to be the absolute steal of the draft right there. Juwan Johnson, 20th in targets, 20th receptions, 17th in receiving yards, 4th in touchdowns. 7 TDs last season, and I think that he has an opportunity to even grow on that this year. If you're looking for under-the-radar sleeper options at the tight end position, Juwan Johnson is that guy. He is the biggest red zone threat on this New Orleans Saints team, and I have a feeling that Derek Carr is going to be looking his way when they get down there quite a bit. I mentioned it a few minutes ago with David Njoku. It seemed like towards the end of the season, even though he lost out on some of that volume, he was the guy in the red zone. They were drawing up plays specifically for David Njoku. And right here, 5th in red zone targets last season. That could carry over this year, and they've added Elijah Moore, so his opportunity potentially for volume is going to decrease a little bit. But if he can be that red zone threat, the touchdowns may be able to help stabilize that value. And in terms of red zone receptions, this category really kind of mirrors what we saw in red zone targets. And with tight ends, it continues to be the same guys at the top time after time after time. And how about Cole Kmet, number 3 in red zone touchdowns? keep an eye on him this season. They've added DJ Moore. They've beefed up the offensive line a little bit, and the defense isn't going to be that good. It's going to be a little bit improved, but it's still not going to be good this season. And because of that, Justin Fields is going to have to grow as a passer. At times last year, Cole Kmet was his guy. He was looking his way every chance that he could get. Will that carry over into 2023? That's going to be one thing that's going to be interesting to watch about the dynamic of that team. All right, let's go ahead and average out all the categories now and see who finished highest when it came to volume statistics last year. And it's really no surprise to see guys like Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, George Kittle, TJ Hawkinson, these guys at 1 through 4 right now. And more than likely, you're going to see that same volume carry over into 2023. And I will bring up Mark Andrews real quick because there is some concern that he could see a drop in volume because they've added so many wide receiver weapons around him. But keep in mind, this is a new offensive scheme that is going to be looking at passing more and looking down the field more. Lamar Jackson does not have the same chemistry with his wide receivers like he does with Mark Andrews. So it could be one of those situations where he does get off to a fast start, he sees plenty of volume, and maybe things start to drop down a little bit as the season goes on, and Lamar Jackson feels it with those other guys, but maybe the efficiency will get better. Dalton Schultz, David Njoku, Tyler Higbee kind of talked about inconsistent seasons for them. However, again, they got volume. They were looked at by their quarterbacks. They got targets by their quarterbacks. Dalton Schultz is the biggest changer here, though, because he goes from Dallas to Houston. We're going to have to see how that affects him, but hopefully CJ Stroud makes him kind of his safety blanket. And even if the efficiency isn't that good, the volume stays kind of where we've seen it. Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett, to see them this high in the rankings is a little bit of a shock and a testament to the fact that they were still looked at by their quarterbacks. But the problem is they were only really propped up by a couple of different categories, and they didn't really stand out anywhere in particular. So for Cole Kmet, again, we already talked about him and mentioned 2023, increased passing attack. Hopefully he's the guy for Justin Fields. But for Gerald Everett, with the addition of Quentin Johnston, I doubt Everett's going to see much volume this year. Two of the top fantasy producers last season actually ended up finishing lower than I thought, with Pat Freiermuth and Evan Ingram. Both of these guys, again, lots of weapons around them, but they got a lot of targets last season and they were dynamic playmakers. And even if the targets drop a little bit, hopefully it allows the efficiency to get better. The biggest issue with Pat Freiermuth and the reason he's so low is just because there was a huge drop in his touchdown production from 2021 to 2022. And as you look through the rest of the list, let's be very honest with ourselves. This is why the tight end position is so freaking difficult to draft. Because at the tight end position, you have the guy that does it all. Travis Kelce. He's going to get you volume. He's going to score. He's going to be highly efficient. And then behind him, you've got guys like, again, George Kittle, but he's dealt with some injury concerns. You've got Mark Andrews, who's been inconsistent at times. TJ Hawkinson should be very consistent this year, but is he going to lose touchdown opportunities to Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson? There are question marks around everybody at the tight end position. So when you look at everybody after that, you kind of have to go one way or another. Do you shoot for a guy like Tyler Higbee or some type of tight end where they're getting a decent amount of volume, which means the potential will be there even if the ceiling isn't? Or do you shoot for a guy like Juwan Johnson, a guy where the volume just wasn't there last season, but he scored a ton of touchdowns? And because of that, it made him a guy that you took a dart throw on every single week. And trust me, we're going to be diving even deeper into tight ends for the rest of the off season. So if you enjoy this type of content, hit that like button for me and subscribe here to the channel. And honestly, I would encourage everybody to hit the join button down below the video and become a member of the channel. Get a chance to possibly chat one-on-one with Jake and myself. Join our Discord with other members of Headliner Nation, talk football and everything else with them. And hey, get yourself some extra videos here on YouTube as well. Leave me a comment on this video though and let me know what you think about the tight ends and who's your value pick this season. Leave out the top guys. Who's somebody a little bit later on in your draft that you want to take a shot at? Peace out, Headliner Nation. Stay safe and healthy, and I'll catch you all in the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.